Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Plays. Today I'm taking a look at Mycelia from designer J.J. Neville and publishers Splitstone Games and Burnt Island Games. This is a sort of abstract strategy style game in which you sort of find yourself controlling a sort of mycelial network of mushrooms, starting with your mother mushrooms, sporing out to fruit other mushrooms that then spore themselves, ultimately building out this network that eventually decays, all sort of the while building up points, hoping to score the most points by the end of the game. Disclaimer, I was given a copy of this game for this video, but as always, I will do my best to give you my own honest opinion on the game. With that said, let's head down to the table to see how the solo mode in this one plays, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. To set up a solo game of Mycelia, begin first by removing these black triangle tiles from the game. Then taking the other remaining tiles in red, green, yellow, and brown, splitting them into two piles that are then shuffled, taking the top 6 tiles from each stack and creating this shape that is appearing on your screen right now. Now, everything is set up, but this may end up needing to shift around because this will expand as I play through the game, but for right now I've sort of centered it so I have space in all directions. And then we're going to take the remaining 2 stacks of tiles and sort of place them off somewhere where they are out of the way. And I'll make use of those later, but for right now I'm just going to stick those up there. Then after this has been set up, you need to place out an insect token on every tile like this one right here that has an insect printed on it. And the insect tokens come in a variety of different insect types, but they're all exactly the same, so you can place them as random on those locations. And then just place the remaining insect tokens somewhere out of the way. Again, things may need to get moved around as I play. Next, we're going to take the mushroom cards, give those a good shuffle. First, dealing 3 of them out to myself, and then placing the rest of these off to the side. I will make a sort of display of available cards in just a minute, but I need to finish other steps of setup before doing that. So next we're going to continue setting up the player areas for myself. I will be playing this game as the blue player. So I'm going to take the 5 mushroom mats that look like this, placing them out in order of dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across my play area, leaving some space below for cards to be tucked in underneath those tiles. Then for each of those tiles, I'm going to place out the mushroom matching that number, as well as a spore counter in that leftmost colored circle. And then I'm going to place out my spore cubes just off to the side of the screen here. They don't really need to be seen, and I'll make use of those as I play through the game, and I'll explain what those are in just a second. And then finally, I need to choose a place to put my mother mushroom. And this mother mushroom can start on any of the inside triangle tiles. And I'll explain more about what that does and why that does what it does in a minute. But looking at my cards, I see yellow, red, red, green. I see yellow or green and a red, and I see 3 green. So I'm looking at kind of yellow, red, green. Don't care so much about the brown right now. I also know that insect tokens do good things for me. I'll explain again what they do in just a minute. But I'm going to place my mother right there, which means I do get that 1 insect token to myself. Each player should also start with an insect token from the supply, so I'm going to start with those 2 insect tokens. Next, to set up the AI or the Automata opponent, I'm going to take the 2 AI Automa cards, placing them sort of here in the middle, like that. Actually, let's slide it up. We've got a little bit extra space, like that. Take the AI deck of cards, giving those a shuffle, which I will place right here next to those cards. I will have the AI play as white, just because I think blue and white stand out the most against the background here, because the other colors are yellow and yellow and red do exist as tile colors as well. So when placing out the AI's mother, they always place out directly opposite from me to start the game. And then all of the AI spore counters go on the first space on this Spore-tomata card, and the mushrooms will simply be placed off to the side with the AI's spores as well. And then the AI will get 2 insect tokens and 5 of the mushroom cards face down. So I'm going to give the AI 2 random insect tokens, like that. And then 5 of these cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the AI will never make use of these cards. They simply have them because there will be potentially cards that I can play that will allow me to take those from the AI. So I'm just going to stick those like that here. Then finally, the last thing we do need is this end game token, as well as the spore die, which you can see here, that I'll just set off in the middle for right now because I will be using that quite often. And with that, we are all set up for gameplay. Mycelia is going to play out over an indeterminate number of rounds, starting with me as the first player, taking turns back and forth between myself and the AI or automata opponent, doing a variety of actions out here on the board, looking to fruit my mushrooms and then eventually decay those mushrooms. And once either one of us has decayed all 5 of our different mushrooms, the game end will be triggered. And to show you all of the actions that are available to me, we've got this nice card here, this player aid that says, on my turn, a player performs 2 different actions. And the actions I can perform are move, spore, fruit, discover, explore, and decay, which I will explain to you in just a minute. But I'm not going to use this. I will just explain them to you. I just want to show you on the back of here. It also gives a little bit more detail about how things spore, but then also what the insect tiles can do. I can always, at the end of the game, spend 2 insect tiles, or basically 2 insect tiles are worth 1 point at the end of the game. I can spend 2 insect tiles to move a mother mushroom, the opponent's mother mushroom wherever I'd like to. I can spend 1 insect to refresh all of the cards here, which I haven't put out and realize now that I should. And I can always trade 3 cards to get 1 insect. This other stuff explains some of the other things, and I will explain more of that on my own as I get into play. I just wanted to show you that this does exist in the game. But before I explain all the actions, I do realize now that I said that I have to turn over 3 of these cards for our sort of available mushroom market. All right, so again, on my turn, I get to take 2 of 6 actions, and I can only take each action once. And the first action I can do is I can move my mother mushroom. And my mother mushroom can always move up to 2 spaces, moving from triangle to triangle across adjacent edges. The next thing I can do is spore. And spore is how I place out my cubes. These are the AIs, but mine here, I can place out these spore cubes. And the reason I want to place out these spore cubes is, as I place out these spore cubes on the different colors on the board, I can then later use those spores, as you can see down here, for another type of action, which is the fruit action. And I have to spend a number of spores that match those different types in order to fruit that type of mushroom. And the spores that I can use are going to be any of my spores that are connected through a network, meaning adjacent to each other across the board. But also, if I have my mother mushroom or one of my main mushrooms on a space that has the opponent's spores, I count those spores as my own because I sort of own that space by having my piece there. It's also worth mentioning we can never have 2 mothers at the same place, but I could, for example, if the opponent had a mushroom placed somewhere, place my mother mushroom on top of their mushroom, thereby blocking that mushroom, taking control of that space. But also, we're talking about sporing now. The way sporing works is I'm going to choose either one of my regular mushrooms or my mother mushroom. And depending on the type of mushroom, I will spore a different amount of spores. The mother will always spore 2, but every other mushroom that we have, once they've been fruited, will spore a number of spores equal to what it shows on the particular card for that mushroom. And the way that works is by rolling this die and then following the symbol from where you're sporing, say for example here, and placing a number of cubes equal to the number of whatever that thing can spore. So assuming that this could spore 4, the way that works is I'm looking at sort of this direction from that spot. So if I was sporing 4, I would spore here as 1, here as 2, and then either here or here as 3, and then the other one that I didn't as 4. So these 4 would be spored if I rolled that symbol from this space. And when a mushroom is covered by an opponent's mother, that mushroom at that time can therefore no longer spore on that turn unless that mother is moved. So that might be a reason that I would spend 2 insect tokens to move an opponent's mother if they were potentially blocking one of my mushrooms. So I've already talked about the fruit action where I am spending my cubes from the board, and you'll see better how that works when I do my first fruit action or as I sort of talk through my turns coming up. But when we pay for a mushroom, we're going to pay cubes equal to the types of things that are shown on here. And then I will choose to place this out in any of these 5 slots that still has a mushroom available, placing that on that spot, and then placing this mushroom on one of the tiles that I've just taken the cubes from in order to fruit that, placing that out on the board. That means from now on, if I spore with that mushroom, I will move up on this spore track, which means, as you can see here, each mushroom can only ever spore twice. And the reason that is the next type of action I can take is the decay action. Once I've spored twice with a mushroom, I can choose to decay that mushroom. And what that means is I'm going to tuck this mushroom then under the slot and do whatever it says down here. Sometimes, like this one, I will get a new ability that says, for example, my mother now spores 3 instead of 2. Some of them, like this one over here, will give me something instantly. This one says I gain 2 spores and place on multiple triangles on the board. So I'm getting some kind of ability for having for having decayed a mushroom. That mushroom would then come back to here, and as I said, that card would be slid under that board like that. And as soon as I have 5 cards across here, 1 in each of the 5 slots, that will trigger the end of the game. Likewise, if the AI has placed out and decayed 5 mushrooms, that will also trigger the end of the game. For me, however, it's worth mentioning, I can continue fruiting something that's already been fruited once that mushroom comes back. So I could have multiple things decayed in the same space, but I only trigger the end of the game if all 5 of these have something decayed underneath them. The last 2 actions I have available to me are Discover and Explore. Discover means I can simply take one of the cards shown here or the top card from this deck and add it to my hand. And Explore means I can take one tile from either of these and add it adjacent to somewhere on the board. So those are the actions I have available to me, and you'll see more specifically how they work as I get into gameplay. And I'll explain how the AI works on their first turn, which will happen after my first turn. So let me go ahead and take my first turn first. So first things first, if I do hope to spawn any of these or fruit any of these mushrooms, I need to have some spores out on the board. And I'm in a good location because from here I can reach green, I can reach red. Actually, I'm only doing 2 here. I could potentially move to this spot and hope for green, red, and yellow, which is what I need. So you know what? That's what I'm going to do. For my first move, I'm moving here, and then I'm sporing from the mother. Rolling the die, I get that sort of A-shaped symbol, which means downward direction. So I'm going to place 1 on my space and 1 on the adjacent space. So now I have access to 1 green and 1 red spore. Then on the AI's turn, they're simply going to turn over one of their cards. Now these cards are sort of double-sided. This green bottomed one is the sort of standard or easy mode, and this yellow bottom one is the more difficult mode. For this playthrough, I will be playing with the yellow, more difficult version of the AI. And then that's going to get placed out here on their board. And you'll see that each of the things on the card lines up with some kind of action on their main AI card. And they're going to follow from the top down, taking 2 actions just like I did. So the first thing I'm going to do is try and fruit one of their mushrooms based on what it shows here. And here you can see it shows green, brown, and 3 white spaces. 3 white spaces means 3 of any color. So they need 5 with at least 1 green and 1 brown. And of course, they have to be neighboring each other or a network of spores just like ours are. And of course, right now they don't have any, so they will move to the next spot, which says decay. If they have a mushroom that's already been spored twice, they will decay that mushroom. And they will do whatever it says here on decaying that mushroom. They don't have any, they skip that. The next action is spore. If they have a mushroom on the board, they will spore the mushroom first. If they have multiple mushrooms on the board, they will always spore the one that has spored the least before moving on to one that has already spored before. And when they spore a mushroom, since they don't have mushroom cards, they will always spore a number equal to what it shows here. If there are no mushrooms on the board for them to spore, they will spore from their mother, and the mother, just like me, will always spore twice. Now, one rule is, if their mother or mushroom is ever on the edge of a board where it only shares one edge with another tile, before taking their spore action, they will first take an explore action, adding something adjacent to that location. But in this case, they're already surrounded, so they will go ahead and spore from their mother in this sort of U direction, which is this way. So they're going to place one here and one here like that. And that was their first action. The next one is move. When the AI moves, they will always roll. And then they will use that die roll to look at this area right here. And that tells them which direction what they're going to sort of prioritize as they move. So this says that I'm looking to move towards the opponent's spores, the most populated tile of opponent's spores, which right now is this one, but they can never move onto a space with my mother, so they will simply move there. All right, then it is my turn again. I have a green and a red, which means I could spore this orange porcap, which will eventually let my mother spore 3. I think I'm going to do that. So I'll spend this green and this red to place this. Now I could place this either on this green space or this red space. And I think right now, I'm going to place it there because I might move this up that way to get some of this stuff and start expanding away from them. That gets placed here like that. And my second action, that spores 2, my mother spores 2. Either way, it doesn't matter. So I might as well spore from there first, potentially decaying that soon because it is going to be kind of a race against the AI. Sporing to the circle direction, I place one here and one here like that. AI's turn. They need a brown and 3 others. They have no brown. Oh, they do have a brown, but only 1 other. So not enough to fruit, nothing to decay. They're going to spore from the mother because that's all they have. Circle direction is up. So 1 here and 1 there like that. Mother moving. Prioritizing, again, the opponent's space with the most populated tile of opponent's spores, which is still here or here. So realistically, it can't move following that. So when the AI can't move following that, you just roll twice to follow symbols on the board. So they're going to circle direction and then the U direction like that. All right. My turn again. I'm going to move this guy here because now I have control of that as mine. So I have 1 red, 1 green, and 1 yellow. That doesn't work for me. I need 1 more red. I'm going to spore from here one more time. Triangle direction. Placing 1 here and 1 here. So I'm set up for next turn for that. AI goes again. Brown and 2 randoms. So they do have that. The AI will place the brown. And they only have access to these 2, so they'll take both of those. And they will fruit their first mushroom. And the AI will always fruit the mushroom that matches matches one of the colors listed that they were required to take from. So they will place in that brown area like that. That was fruit. They can't decay. They will spore. It says spore 3. They're sporing from their mushroom now. in the triangle direction. So 1, 2, there's nowhere else to go, so that's the end. They don't place out their third. They are finished. So I'm going to fruit another mushroom. Means I need yellow, which this one counts as right now. 2 reds here and here because all of this is connected together, and 1 green. And I'm going to place that mushroom here. That's my first action. And my second action is I'm going to move there to block their mushroom. AI's turn. And now this is where things get interesting. First things first, they need a yellow and 2 of something. They don't have that because I've taken this away, but they have a yellow and nothing else. They can't decay anything. Sorry, they did spore that once. That should have moved up last turn. But now, they're supposed to be sporing. And normally, if there was no mushroom, they'd be sporing their mother. But a blocked mushroom still counts as having one on the board, so they cannot spore their mother. So first they're going to take a move action as normal because that's what's at the bottom, and that is a U, which says they're moving towards the Automata's fruited mushroom. They can't because I'm there, so they're going to do a random movement again. Moving to U, and then to circle, which is nothing. Then, because they were only able to take 1 action and I am blocking anything else, they will spend first 1 insect, not the 2 that I would need to spend, just 1 insect to move my mother to the furthest tile on the board, which from here is probably this one over here. And then they will take an explore action. So they're going to explore a new tile. And generally it says when they explore, they place it next to whatever is taking the move here. Now I don't know if it's this one or this one, but let's spawn next to something they have. So I'm going to put that right there like that. All right, then it's my turn. I'm going to spore this one again just so I can work towards... Oh, I did already twice. Yeah, never mind. I did already twice. So he's going to actually decay as my first action. That comes back like that. That slides in there like that. And now my mother has the ability to spore 3 times. So I'm actually going to second action move there to get this insect and set myself up for the next round. AI's turn. Green, something, something. They don't have any green and they only have 2 spores out. There's nothing to decay, so they will spore from this mushroom. Triangle, placing out 3, but they can't because that's the edge. 1, 2 like that. That's the second time that one spored. Then the mother is moving towards opponent's spores. So 1, they can't come this way, so they're going to go, whoops, 1, 2 like that, coming towards that spore. My turn. I don't have anything out there. I'd like to spore this one. I'd like to spore this one. If I do this, though, I could potentially be giving him stuff, and I don't want to do that. So I am going to spore from here first, see what happens. Circle. Now remember, my mother can spore 3 times, but circle is this way, so there's not enough space. 1, 2 like that. Then I have a brown, a green. The problem is this does not connect to those 2. So I can't spend those 3 in a single action because there's no connection. So the first thing I want to do is move there. So next time I have that connection. And then I'm going to start looking at this next turn to see what other kinds of mushrooms I can get. Yes, AI's turn. Green with 3 other things. They still have no green, so they can't. This mushroom will decay. Placing there on their card, and it says, move the opponent's closest mushroom to the furthest green or red. So this goes to the furthest green or red. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 here or here. And I'm going to say that the AI gets its way. Further away is fine, but I did also just realize there should be an insect on that tile. Like that. That was their first move. Next, they're sporing from the mother. Twice in the circle direction. 1, 2 like that. Yeah, I need to do something about that. Well, I was going to do something different, but I'm not now. I'm sporing from here. My mother gets 3. That's a U. Of course, I'm sporing in the direction that I can only do twice. But then I will move here. That's mine now, and I've got a nice network of stuff for the next round, including enough to get this mushroom out. AI goes next. Yellow, red, and 3 others. They have no red. Nothing to decay. They're sporing from the mother in the U direction twice. 1, 2, like that. And then the mother will move. In the circle direction means prioritizing the opponent's fruited mushroom, which is up here. 1, 2, like that. Which actually works out nice for me because they just left that wide open. Green, green, green. Red, yellow, yellow, brown. The problem is only 1 yellow there. That's worth 6 points. But I could put this out right now and not mess that up at all because this takes 3 green and that uses no green. So I'm going to do that. My first action is to play that mushroom, fruit that mushroom. And that's going to go in one of these 3 green spots. Let's put it there because there's more opportunity for that to spread things out. And then, I'm going to take that card. AI's turn, flipping over yellow and 3 of anything. They absolutely can do that. So they're going to play yellow first. And then 3 of anything, their rule is they start at the most occupied spaces. So 1, 2, 3 browns. But they have to put the mushroom in yellow because that's the only color on that card. So it goes there. That was step 1. Step 2 is decay. No, can't spores from this new mushroom, but it is on the edge of the board, which means they're going to explore from that mushroom, and then that's it. That's their second action. Now, they could put it there, but that helps me too. So I'm going to say they put it there, and that gets an insect on it, and that's their turn. My turn. I'm sporing from the mother in the circle direction. And mother now spores 3 for me. So I will spore 1, 2, and then I get to choose either of those. If I put it there, it's his, so I'm going to put it there. And then I am going to fruit this mushroom, which takes red, yellow, yellow, brown. Red, yellow, that's mine because I'm there. Yellow and brown. And I can put that on either of those locations. I'm going to put it there. I think. No, I'm not. I'm going to put it there instead. That goes there like that. And that is my turn. AI. Red and 3 things. They can. Red and, nope, that's only 2 things. They are missing 1. Then, no decay, they will spore this. So that slides over 1. We're sporing 4 potentially. In the triangle direction, nope, they're only going to get 2. 1, 2. Means the second action is mother's moving, prioritizing my fruited mushroom. So they're going to cover that, which is sad because I need to start sporing off of there so I can get to the end of the game, but that's fine. That's the end of their turn. I will spore from number 3. In the circle direction, number 3 spores 3 in the circle direction. 1, 2, and I get to choose either of these, green or brown. Looking over here, lots of green would be nice to have. Like that. That moves up like that. And then I might as well take that card so I have access to it later on. AI, red and 2 somethings. They definitely have red and 2 somethings. They're going to take a red. Then they'll prioritize that one. Then those 3, they can prioritize anything they want, but I'm going to say this one because it's closest to my mother, potentially stealing it from them. So they place out 3 in that red spot they took from. Nothing decays. Now they're sporing. Now this one spored once before, this one hasn't yet. So they're going to prioritize the one that hasn't yet. Rolling and sporing to the circle direction 3 times. 1, 2, and again I think they're going to go that way. My turn. I need more green. I might as well spore from this 3 again. In the circle direction. Sporing 3 times, 1, 2, 3. That's wonderful. Because I need 4 green, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Placing out mushroom 5 right there. Like that. We're doing real good. That was the second time that spored like that. AI's turn. They're doing very poorly this game. And their first card says green and 3 somethings. They do have green. That's not theirs, which means they don't have green because that doesn't connect to anything. That has blocked them, which is great for me. They can't decay anything. They're going to prioritize number 2, sporing, which is in the U direction. Unfortunately, that means just 1 for him. That has spored. Moving the mother in the triangle direction. No, sorry, triangle focus, which is most populated with my spores, is down here. So 1, 2 like that, which means now they do have access. Oh, they did anyway, but they had access to both of those. My turn. I'm going to decay mushroom 3. Where is mushroom 3? Mushroom 3 is that one. This decays, which says now I can perform the same action twice. Interesting. I'm gonna explore first. To add that one there. Yeah, why not? Like that. And then I am gonna spore number 2. Which, that way, 2. 1, 2 like that. AI's turn. Yellow, red, and 3 somethings. Yellow, hold on. Yellow, red, that's 2. 1, 2. That's not theirs. Wait, hold on. What am I doing? I think I placed out my things for their things for my spore. Hold on, I'm gonna pause for a second, check the video, and I'll come right back. No, I'm crazy, everything is okay. So again, they need yellow, red, and 3 things, but this is not connected to here. So they need 5, and they've only got 1, 2, 3, 4 out, so that can't happen. They can decay, sorry, this should have slid to decay when that came off, but it did decay. They will decay this mushroom, which means it says move opponent's closest mushroom to the furthest yellow or brown. So this one's gonna move the furthest yellow or brown. Means here, whoops, like that. Then they will spore their number 3 in the U direction, which is that way, so they can only be 2 even though they should spore 3. Good. And I should have moved that up again. Sorry, I keep forgetting to shift that. Then, that's sad because he's not surrounded anymore. So I'm gonna spore. I don't want to give him stuff though. Where's 5? 5 is here. I'm exploring from 5. That way. And then I'm sporing 5 in the triangle direction. It should spore 3, but there's only 2 spaces, so I'll do that. That spored like that. My turn is done. AI again. Yellow and 3 this time. They absolutely have that. So yellow first. Then most populated here, they're going to spend mine first. And most populated again is here. So that's that. They place out 4 in that yellow spot. And again, I forgot to push that up when they spored last turn, which means actually their first action this round, sorry, second action, because the first was placing that, is to decay their number 3, which says remove all spores from triangles with the most opponent's spores. So those 2 go away. Right, then my turn. I'm just going to start focus on getting done here. This 5 is going to spore into triangle direction, which is just those 2, and I realized those should have been blue last time. Like that, which pushes them to 2, and their second action then is decaying that one, like that, which says gain 2 spores and place on multiple triangles. So looking up here at what's the best option available to me, not a whole lot is great. I've got 2 greens, I've got 2 blues. I should place one here to make sure that things connect. And I guess that means I should place one there as well. That's my turn. Their turn, trying to fruit red and 3 things. Here and here, but they can't connect to this one, and because of me here, they can't connect to this one. So those are 2, and those are 2. They can't fruit. So they're going to spore from mushroom 4 over here in the U direction. How many? 4. They can only do 3 because that's all that's there. 1, 2, 3, like that. And then they're moving the mother, focusing on my mother. So they'll just go here, getting closer. But that means they also take that cube from me, but that's okay. I'm going to spore here, number 4, in the U direction. Number 4 is 2. 1, 2, like that. And then I'm going to spore this one just to push towards the end in the U direction, which unfortunately just gets one there, like that. The eye's turn. Brown and 3 things. They can absolutely do that. So they'll start with this blue one on the brown because they might as well spend mine. First, 3 other things that are connected to this. 1, and they can't spend my things, but let's say 2 and 3 like that. Focusing on brown means I think they will focus there. Nothing can decay, but they will spore the new one they just placed in the circle direction 4. Which means 1, 2, 3, 4, making that one mine, which is nice of them. And that went up 1. So I still have a few more turns left. I'm going to take a card to see what I get, which is yellow, red, red, which I can do using theirs right here, because all of this is connected. So I'm going to do yellow, red here. And it doesn't matter, let's say red there, to place out again that one there, which goes there like that. This resets. Sorry, that should have been decayed like that. Their turn. Red something, something. They don't have any access to red at the moment. They can't decay, but they will spore number 4, which is U. Sporing 3 times, 1, 2, 3, like that. That goes up 1, then mother moves, prioritizing the brown. So here, here, or here, I'm going to say, they can't move through me. So they're going to go there instead. All right, then my turn, I'm going to spore number 2 in the U direction, which means just once. And then I'm going to decay that mushroom, which now my mother spores 3, but it already did, so that doesn't help me any. That's decayed. AI's turn, green, brown, and 3. They can definitely do that. So they'll do a green, a brown, and then 1, 2, doesn't really matter. Let's say 3. Has to be a green or brown. But, never mind. Let's put all of that back because I don't remember where the last one was. It doesn't matter. The AI can never fruit more than 5 mushrooms. And I just realized again that that's already there. So they're not going to fruit at all. They're instead going to spore number 5 in the U direction for 3. 1, 2, 3. And then the AI is going to move, prioritizing my most pieces, which is down here. So they're going 1, 2, blocking that one. Then my turn, I am sporing number 4. I can't, but I can. If I spend 2 of those to push them away to wherever I'd like them to go. How about up there? That's free. Now I can spore that one. Whoops. Triangle direction. It spores 2, 1, 2, like that. Done. AI takes their turn. Can't fruit, can't decay, will spore number 4. Triangle direction. Means only 2 is possible. We'll move, which means I just wasted my insects, I think, because now he's coming back again. And I can't push him away again. So I can't end the game right now. So I might as well focus on getting other things done. I'm going to move here to take an insect. And I will take this card just because. Ooh, 6 points, red, green, green, yellow. Yellow's a problem. AI goes, cannot fruit, will decay. Number 4 comes off like that. Gain 1 insect token. And then they are sporing. This is already completely spored. So they're not sporing. So they're going to move the mother towards my fruited mushroom where they already are. So that stays there. So yeah, I'm going to spend my 2 insects to push them away. And then I'm going to decay. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, I don't have to. I'm going to decay that mushroom, sliding that in there, which now my mother can move 3, but I have 1 in each slot. So that ends the game instantly. So we go into final scoring. I score all mushrooms that have been fruited and or decayed. And the Automa or Automata scores 5 points for every mushroom that's been fruited, plus any bonus points from insects. So they have 2 insects is 1 point, and they have fruited all 5 mushrooms. So they scored 26 points. But for me, I've got no insects. Sorry, I did finish the game first. And by finishing the game, I also get this end game bonus, which is 5 points. So I score 3 and 6 is 9, and 2 is 10, 11, and 4 is 15, and 6 is 21, plus 7 is 28, and 5 is 33 points. So I win 33 to 26. Now, while we are here, I do like to take a look at the components. You've basically seen all of the components here. I have to say, first off, the wooden die. I'm not generally a fan of wooden dice. I prefer plastic, but this wooden die is really nice. It rolls really nicely. The polish on it, or the finish on it, is really nice. It's very clear, very easy to see. I like the way it looks a lot. This final piece also sort of matches thematically with that, which is cool. I really love these tiles with this little tracking thing here that is dual layered. Plus, I don't know how easy it was to see on the screen, but this is actually dual layered underneath. So when I'm sliding it in, it actually fits inside there and won't go in any further. So it slides all the way in perfectly and shows off that bottom piece. Really, really, really cool design. I love the way that that works, and I love the way that that looks. The wooden pieces here, the mushrooms, are very cute, look really nice. These sort of patterns on the mother mushroom, very, very nice looking. Just very clean, very crisp. I do really enjoy the sort of design here on all of these card backs and also on the back of all of the tiles. Just everything looks really pretty, really nice. Now, talking about the colored components, I just do want to point out quickly, the other two player colors are this red and yellow, which for me is a little bit of a mistake, I think, because there are red tiles and there are yellow tiles, and they kind of do somewhat blend in with those, especially the red one. So I think maybe some other sort of clashing colors might have been good, except that it does visually fit the feel of the game. So I don't know. These triangle tiles are very nicely colored, very easy to see which color is which. It does make a nice, cool network across the table. Not a big problem. I do kind of wish something was printed on the back of these. Everything else is beautiful. It has design everywhere. So that this is just a solid black is a little bit sad, but not a big problem. The insects are all really cool. They're just simple punchboard tokens, but yeah, of decent thickness, and I like that they're all different kinds of insects, even though they all do exactly the same thing. Yeah, for the most part, I really, really do enjoy all of the components in this game. Also, looking at the cards real quickly, let me just show you a chunk of cards. Each one of these cards is a different kind of mushroom with the name and the Latin name there, with a different illustration. I didn't realize how many mushrooms there are in the world. It's really, really cool to see all of these different mushrooms, and I think I may even, as I play this game, start looking into more of these, because it's really, really cool just to find out about them, to see all these different strange shapes and strange colors. Just, you can tell that the person who made this game and who came up with all of these mushrooms really does know this world of mushrooms, and thematically it's really cool that you're sporing your mushrooms and growing your mushrooms and decaying your mushrooms, and thematically everything visually fits in, and I'll talk more about how that works in the gameplay later on in this video. The other thing I do want to talk about, I always talk about in my videos, is inserts. This game does have a very nice insert. Now you'll see that these are in a bag. That's because I haven't played with the yellow pieces yet. Everything else I've just sort of put in loose like this. On second thought, I might end up putting them back into bags, simply because if there's one small negative about this insert is that the edges of these things are not curved at all. They're flat walls and flat bottoms. So sometimes it's a little bit hard to dig this stuff out of there, especially the last couple of pieces. So putting them in a baggie like that does make them come out easier, so I may end up going back to that. But in any case, either way, they are stored well enough in there that you don't have to worry about them. Nothing's going to shift. Everything here works out very nicely. These cards slide in here like that. The endgame token goes in that space here. The die goes right there in that hole. Each of the mothers goes in this little circle that goes with their own components. And then on top of those, you can see that once those are all in there, these tiles all stack up and fit into that space there, holding everything very, very, very nicely in place. All of these triangles fit into these two different sides. Now, it does become a small juggling game putting these in, because you'll notice that here where this endgame piece is, there's a little bit of a lip there. There's a step up. I don't know how well you see it on camera, but there's a step up there. It means if you put the same number on both sides, it's not going to work. You have to put more on this side and less on this side because of that step up. But again, that's not the end of the world. Then finally, in the middle here, all of the different cards here, the sort of player aids and the AI cards all fit into this cutout right here. The rulebook fits right on top. Everything is held very, very well inside this box. Big thumbs up on the insert of this game from me. That's basically all I have to say about the components. Maybe back up top and I'll let you know what I think about the game itself. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. Let me apologize first for the couple of small mistakes that I made during gameplay. Towards the end of the game would have ended earlier, but that last bit didn't really change anything. Looking back further, I did make a mistake that helped me, but I also made a mistake that helped out the AI player. So hopefully it would have balanced out, and I don't expect, based on the other sort of scores that I've had while playing this game, that the game would have turned out that much differently than it did. So I hope that this playthrough still stands as sort of a good representation of this game. Now, let's get into my thoughts on this game. And this is going to be a tough one for me because I want to come straight out front and say this game sort of underwhelmed me quite a bit. And I feel bad saying that. But let me sort of bear with me while I get into sort of what I enjoyed about this game, because there is a lot in this game that is very good, and I want you to understand that. But let me start off sort of with a little bit of story. And first I want to say that I know this game because the person who designed this game is sort of friends of friends. Putting that out there just to get any bias out of the way. I don't have any personal connection, and I don't want to say that the game is good just because of that. But also, I also should come forth and say, generally, I'm not a huge fan of abstract strategy games. And more these days, I'm sort of finding myself saying that that's not as true as it used to be, because there are some abstract strategy games, or sort of thematically abstract strategy games like this one, that have caught my attention. So I did want to give this one a shot because it did look very pretty. The theme is very, very cool, and it did have a bit of a spatial element to it, and I tend to be a really big fan of spatial puzzle kinds of games, so I wanted to give it a shot even though I was sort of predisposed to not really enjoy this kind of game. And getting into it, it sort of fit my expectations as that kind of game would do. But I want to talk about the game mechanisms, because the core mechanisms of this game are pretty clever, and more than that, they're very thematic. It really, really does show that the designer of this game knows something about mycelial networks and mushrooms and so on. But anyway, the core mechanism here is a bit of a spatial puzzle kind of game, where you're sort of building out this area, placing hexes out to grow, sorry, not hexes, triangles. They sort of form hexes out of the triangles, but triangles growing out this size of sort of the world, the network of mushrooms on the board. And then starting with that mother mushroom, you're moving around the board, picking up insects that help you in various ways, but more importantly, throwing out your spores, which eventually, when spores are out in enough of specific colors, those spores then fruit and become mushrooms. And the way that works is it's a bit of a sort of set collection, almost area control, because the things that you're collecting are your cubes on locations. And where those cubes are placed and which locations those cubes are placed determines what colors basically they are, or that you have access to. And it's those colors that you're collecting to match patterns on the mushroom cards. And certain sets of cubes on specific colors will then allow you to fruit mushrooms. And then when you fruit mushrooms, those mushrooms sort of create new locations on the map that can then produce spores themselves. And in addition, each of those mushrooms that you fruited will be part of sort of your point score at the end of the game. So you want to fruit as many mushrooms as you possibly can for a couple of reasons. One, because ultimately they score you points, but two, because again, they help you expand your sort of spore ability on the board. And remember, each of these triangles is a different color, and every time you play, the order of these triangles on the board is going to be different. So you're going to have to figure out a way to make the map that you've got work to get you the right color spores in order to fruit the kinds of mushrooms that you're trying to fruit in order to score points. And growing out mushrooms gives you more of sort of variability as to where you can spore on the board. And that's important because each time you spore, it's random. You're going to roll a die, and depending on the die face that comes up, it's going to tell you the direction that that mushroom or that mother is going to spore. So if you have more locations with different varieties of colors around them, sort of the randomness of the spore can then sort of become a little bit less random because of the colors that are available to spore in that location or in that area surrounding that mushroom that is doing this sporing. So you're growing these things out, but ultimately also these mushrooms become the timer for the game, because the game is going to end as soon as one player has decayed one mushroom in each of the 5 slots that they have. And decaying works by first fruiting a mushroom on the board, and then that mushroom must spore 2 times, and after that mushroom has spored twice, it then can decay, coming off of the board, giving you a mushroom sort of slot to refruit again. If you still have time before the end of the game, you can add more mushrooms to that same location, refruiting that same mushroom again, scoring more points for the second mushroom that you fruited. But even more importantly than that, when a mushroom decays, not only is it ticking the timer towards the end of the game, but also when a mushroom decays, it gives you some kind of ability. And sometimes this is a one-off ability that does something very powerful as soon as the mushroom decays, but often it's something that gives you some kind of special ability or allows you to tweak the rules in some way, meaning your mother can move a different amount of spaces, or your mother can spore a different amount of spores, and so on. It's sort of breaking the rules in some way because you have succeeded in decaying that mushroom. So this is the sort of core gameplay loop. Sporing spores on the board, using those spores to fruit mushrooms, using those fruited mushrooms to spore further and fruit more mushrooms, but ultimately, after having spored, decaying, eventually triggering the end of game when you've spored one in each of your 5 slots. And along the way, there's some interesting things that happen here, because it's not just about putting things out on the board and sporing and putting things out on the board and sporing, because the sporing does come from a random die roll. But also, you're competing with an opponent. And your opponent is trying to do the same things, feeding or sort of seeding the board with their spores. And another interesting twist to this sort of battle that you're having with your opponent is that if you fruit one of your mushrooms on a location that contains the opponent's spores, or if you move your mother into a location containing the opponent's spores, those spores then become yours. And you can use the opponent's spores to fruit your own mushrooms, which is interesting because then it's not just about sporing your own thing, but it's about finding a way to connect your own thing into the opponent's stuff that you've taken control of by fruiting mushrooms or by moving your mother. And I said connecting because that's another interesting twist here, is that you can only use spores sort of as a set collection, as a collected set to fruit a mushroom if all of the spores that you're using are physically adjacent to each other, or at least sort of chained or connected across the board adjacent to each other in your color, or that you control by having taken over a location containing your opponent's spores. This idea of this sort of, like I said, mycelial network, that these spores have to be sort of networked together to then come together and fruit this mushroom. So then it becomes interesting too, because there's some ability to block your opponent. Because not only are you taking over their cubes when you go to a certain location, you could also potentially be cutting off one of their networks if you're suddenly in the middle taking over all of their stuff over here and their stuff over here no longer connects. So if they don't have enough cubes in this piece or enough spores in this piece, they can't fruit anything because they needed the spores sort of across the 2 spaces in order to have enough to do something. And on top of that, you can also move your mother onto the opponent's mushroom, fruited mushroom. And a fruited mushroom that has a mother on top of it cannot spore, cannot decay, so you're sort of physically blocking the opponent from doing what it is that they need to do in order to score points and ultimately in order to end the game as well. So you've got this sort of battle as you're sort of trying to prevent your opponent from doing something, but also doing your best to sort of spread out, getting a bunch of different colors, but also focusing on specific colors for the specific mushroom cards that you've taken. You're also paying attention to the sort of score of each mushroom, because you could do lots of little stuff. They're much, much faster to fruit because they take less spores to fruit, but then their powers might be weaker. They might be worth less points. Whereas I can focus on a mushroom that's worth a ton of points, but it's going to require me to have more of a specific kind of spore, or even just more total kinds of spores, or total number of spores, in order to fruit that mushroom that's worth more points or does have some kind of super powerful ability connected to it. So there's this battle of fighting away the opponent, keeping them at bay while doing as much stuff as you can, plus this sort of race element to the game, because as soon as a 5th slot is decayed, that's the end of the game. So you're trying to do as much as you can, preventing the opponent from doing as much as they can, and then watching the timer so that if it looks like you have more time, decaying a slot you've already decayed to fruit more mushrooms in that slot, allowing yourself to score more points. But then if you see the opponent rushing towards endgame, finishing up your endgame before they do so you can score points and they don't. And all of this together really is interesting, and it really does work well, and it sort of feels like a chess match, but then also with a bit of randomness from that die roll, which adds some tactical flavor to the decision making in this game. and then also a bit of a spatial puzzler mixed in there as well. And all of that together works very nicely. And I do really enjoy these sort of ideas in this game and how it works and how it thematically connects to how it works. And it does feel very interesting. And again, I haven't played this game multiplayer, so understand that my thoughts on this game are coming at this game as a solo player. And I say that now because I want to transition into talking about the solo mode, and then I might come back at the end just to say a little bit more about the game in general. But the biggest reason I'm sort of down on this game is that I don't think the solo mode in this game really works. Yes, it functions. Yes, I'm playing against an opponent. Yes, that opponent is sporing. Yes, I can block that opponent. Yes, I can make use of that opponent's spores if I take over their location. Yes, they block me sometimes. Yes, they take some of my spores sometimes. It's definitely an interactive AI. It's definitely doing what it needs to do, except that it's very, very random, meaning that I don't know what kinds of spores it's going to need on the next turn to fruit a mushroom. I can do everything in my power to sort of block it from using spores or to take over its spores, but if it gets lucky that it has the right colors on one turn, or it gets unlucky that it doesn't have the right colors on a specific turn, that determines whether or not it's going to fruit or not. And that ultimately is randomly decided both by the flip of a card, but then also by the random sporing of the sort of the die that you roll when you spore from your mushrooms. So the AI's decision making is not always smart. Yes, it occasionally blocks me. Yes, it occasionally takes my spores, but its movement is also based on a die roll. And sometimes that means it does things that really hurts me, and sometimes it means it's just kind of wandering around doing things that doesn't really make sense, that an opponent wouldn't really do. So it's unfortunate, but it's very, very random. But on top of that, the AI doesn't have the ability to sort of re-fruit mushrooms. I told you that if I fruited a mushroom, decayed a mushroom, I could then fruit a new mushroom in that same slot without triggering that sort of timer, that end game timer. The AI can't do that. The AI has 5 mushrooms and only 5 mushrooms, and when it's done that, there's nothing else it can do. So I know that when it gets to that 5th mushroom, if it starts sporing, well, then it's going to decay and that's going to end the game, and that's good for the AI because it's pushing me to work faster. But it also means if I can sort of block those last couple mushrooms from sporing by putting my mother on them, it gives me more time to fruit more and more and more and more mushrooms, and the AI can't do anything. It also means during those last couple of rounds, when it's taking time to spore the 4th and 5th mushrooms so that they can then decay, it can't additionally be fruiting more mushrooms, adding more points to it. Which means that the AI is scoring 5 points per mushroom that it fruits/decays in this game, which means its core score every time is going to be 25. And then any other points it gets are going to be from the insects that it starts with or that it randomly picks up along the way, which means it's generally scoring 26, 27, maybe 28 points by the end of the game. I've played this game a bunch now, and very, very rarely have I scored below 30. And that's playing against both the basic, the beginner, and the advanced AI. So basically, every time I've been playing this, I'm pretty much just destroying the AI, and it doesn't feel competitive at all. And yes, I'm making decisions, and yes, I feel good about my decisions, and yes, if I wasn't making good decisions, I might lose to the AI. But after a few plays, I think everybody's going to be making decently good decisions in this game, and I don't think the AI can keep up with that at all. So unfortunately, the solo in this game just doesn't work for me. I think there may be a way to make some tweaks to make it work a little bit better, but as it stands, it's just not that challenging. Now, if you do enjoy a solo with a beat your own score kind of variant, and you think about the AI in this game simply as a nuisance that gets in your way that you have to work around and you have to do everything you can to score as many points before the AI triggers the end of the game, then you may really enjoy this solo because, again, the AI is interactive. You can sort of interact with, I said interact a lot now, you can actually hold off the AI. You can actually sort of work around the AI. It does cause you to think both strategically and tactically in different ways based on what it's doing and how you can prevent it from doing things to sort of slow down the progression of the game so that you can get more stuff done / score more points before the end of the game. So as a beat your own score game with an AI that gets in your way, I can give it a little bit more praise than it gets as an actual AI system that's scoring against you, because the scoring of the AI is never really competitive and is never really smart enough to mean anything. So unfortunately, a game that is an abstract strategy game at heart, while it does have some extra tactical decisions based on the sort of randomized order of the triangles that are getting placed out, and the randomized roll of the die that spores coming out, the randomized mushrooms that come out that you spore based on, or sorry, fruit based on different set collection objectives, does add some tactical flair to the game, which makes me enjoy it more than I would something like chess. But because I've been disappointed by the solo mode, it's not one that really gets me. And if I was going to play this a bunch more multiplayer, and I did have people who really did like this kind of game multiplayer, I'd probably enjoy it a lot more. Because as I said, the core mechanisms here seem like a lot of fun, at least for this style of game. And I expect the multiplayer game here is an interesting one and a fun one to play. But for me, I don't think this will get back to the table solo. And unfortunately, because given my sort of predilection to not particularly love this style of game, it's also not one that, when I rarely do get to the table as a multiplayer kind of game, this is probably not the one I'm going to be grabbing, because my multiplayer sessions are very rare and there are lots of other games I'd rather play. So unfortunately, this is a bit of a negative one for me, but again, I do want to leave that with the extra sort of caveat that I do enjoy the core mechanical loop here. I do think there's a good game in this box, and for the right person who likes a strategic kind of chess-style head-to-head battle kind of game with some interesting randomness that causes some nice tactical decision-making, I think there's a great game in this box, and this could be the game just for you. But unfortunately for me, it's just not my favorite. As always, I hope that this video was helpful for you, and I do ask, as always, that if you did enjoy this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.